The envelope was missing. It had been tucked behind the frozen peas, inside a Ziploc bag, wrapped in aluminum foil, hidden the way women who trust no banks hide their future. Maria Alvarez stood frozen in her small Houston kitchen, the refrigerator door still open, cold air spilling against her ankles like a warning. Her hands began to shake. The peas were there. The foil was there. But the envelope, her envelope, was gone. 23 years of savings. Gone. And she already knew who had taken it. Maria had arrived in the United States with $120 in her purse and a newborn in her arms. Houston, Texas, loud, sprawling, unforgiving. She worked cleaning houses in River Oaks during the day and folding laundry at a motel off Interstate 45 at night. She learned English from television commercials and grocery store signs. Every dollar she earned had a destination. Her son, Daniel, her whole world. She never opened a bank account. She didn't trust systems she didn't understand. Instead, she saved in cash, small bills at first. Then larger ones, hidden carefully, counted every Sunday night. It wasn't just money. It was sacrifice converted into paper. Daniel grew up brilliant. Teachers called him gifted. Entrepreneurial mind, they said in high school. He sold sneakers online, fixed phones for classmates, flipped old laptops. Maria glowed with pride. "You're going to own buildings one day," she'd tell him while ironing uniforms at midnight. And Daniel believed it. College changed him. The University of Texas at Austin opened his world. Startup culture, venture capital, words like seed funding and scaling. When he came home for Thanksgiving his junior year, he spoke fast, ambitious, electric. "I have an opportunity, Mom. This tech logistics platform, it's going to disrupt small shipping companies." She didn't fully understand, but she understood the fire in his eyes. Maria's savings had grown to $48,300. Every cleaning job, every skipped vacation, every worn-out pair of shoes she didn't replace. It was meant for a down payment on a house, her retirement, emergencies, Daniel's wedding someday. She never told him the exact amount, only that she was putting something aside. Standing in the kitchen, Maria closed the freezer slowly. She didn't scream, didn't cry. She walked to Daniel's old bedroom. It was Thanksgiving break. He was home. His door was closed. She knocked. "Daniel." Music stopped. "Yeah." She opened the door. He was at his laptop, spreadsheets open. Nervous energy filled the room. "Did you take something from the freezer?" He blinked once. "What?" "The envelope." He laughed. "What envelope?" Her heart cracked at the performance. "Daniel." His jaw tightened, just slightly. "I don't know what you're talking about." And that was the moment she realized something worse than theft had happened. He had chosen ambition over honesty. Maria didn't confront him again that night. Instead, she waited. Mothers know how to wait. 3 days later, a certified letter arrived. From a bank in Austin. Business loan documentation. Guarantor, Daniel Alvarez. Initial capital investment. $50,000 cash. Maria sat at the kitchen table staring at the number. $50,000. She had saved $48,300. Daniel had added some of his own money to round it. To make it look legitimate. To make it look clean. Her hands trembled, not because of the money, but because her son had looked her in the eye and lied. That night, when Daniel walked in, she was sitting in the dark. The envelope from the bank on the table. He saw it, and for the first time in his life, he looked afraid of her. "You used it." Silence. "You stole it." "I borrowed it," he snapped, defensive. "It's an investment. I'm building something bigger than a savings envelope in a freezer." Her breath caught. "That envelope was my life." "It's seed capital," he shouted. "Do you know how hard it is to get investors without traction? I needed leverage. I'll pay it back 10 times over." "You asked," she whispered. He said nothing. "That was all you had to do." Daniel began pacing. "You don't understand how this works, Mom. Opportunity doesn't wait. This could make millions. And if it fails, it won't." That's not an answer. He looked away. And that silence said everything. Maria didn't yell, didn't curse. She simply said, "You will move out." His head snapped toward her. "What? You chose your business over your mother. Now live like it. You're overreacting." "No," she said quietly. "I am reacting exactly enough." That night, Maria lay awake staring at the ceiling. Not grieving the money. Grieving the boy who used to bring her dandelions from the sidewalk. When did he start believing success was worth betrayal? When did she raise a man who could justify stealing from the woman who gave him everything? She felt something shift inside her. Love was still there, but innocence was gone. Daniel moved into a cheap apartment near campus. They barely spoke. Months passed. The startup launched. Early buzz. Articles. Local recognition. Maria saw his face on a Houston business blog. Rising Latino founder to watch. Her chest swelled with pride. And burned with pain. He never mentioned paying her back. Not once. Then came the email. Subject line. We regret to inform you. Funding fell through. Partnership dissolved. Platform crashed. Within 8 months, the company folded. Daniel was left with debt. And shame. And the truth he could no longer outrun. It was raining when he returned to her house. He looked thinner. Humbled. 23 years old and suddenly not invincible. Maria opened the door. Neither spoke. He held out an envelope. Cash. Not all of it. But some. I'm sorry. The words cracked in his throat. And in that moment, Maria had to choose. Punish the betrayal. Or raise her son one more time. The rain had followed him all the way from Austin. Maria could see it clinging to Daniel's jacket, dripping onto her porch, pooling near the faded welcome mat she'd bought at a dollar store 15 years ago. He looked smaller. Failure does that to a person. It shrinks the noise. Strips the shine. Leaves only bone and truth. He held out the envelope like a peace offering. I'm sorry. The words were fragile. Uncertain. As if he wasn't sure they were enough to carry the weight of what he had done. Maria didn't take it. Not yet. Come inside, she said quietly. The living room hadn't changed. Same brown sofa with the small tear near the armrest. Same framed photo of Daniel in his kindergarten graduation cap. Same crucifix above the hallway. But something in the air had shifted. There was a space between them now, invisible but enormous. Daniel stepped in, looking around like a visitor instead of a son. He placed the envelope on the coffee table. It's not all of it, he said quickly. But I've been freelancing. Consulting. I'll pay every dollar back. I swear. Maria finally sat down. She looked at the envelope, then at him. You thought you were smarter than me. He blinked. That's not. You thought because I clean houses, because I hide money in a freezer, because I don't understand your business words. Her voice trembled. You thought I wouldn't notice. His face tightened. I thought you wouldn't understand the opportunity. She leaned back slowly. And you never gave me the chance. What hurt most, she continued, wasn't the money. Daniel swallowed. It was the lie. He looked away. I didn't want to disappoint you. A bitter laugh escaped her. You stole from me. I borrowed it. You denied it. Silence filled the room again. Daniel ran his hands through his hair. I was scared you'd say no. Maria nodded slowly. So you took away my right to choose. The words hit him harder than any accusation. Because they were true. He finally sat across from her. You don't know what it's like out there, Mom, he said quietly. Not defensive now, just tired. Everyone's building something. Everyone's chasing something. If you hesitate, you fall behind. And so you stepped on your own mother to move forward? He flinched. That's not fair. No, she asked softly. His voice cracked. I thought I could fix it before you ever knew. That was the part that shattered her. Not arrogance. Not greed. But childish delusion. You built your future on top of my trust, she whispered. And you gambled with it. He stared at the floor. The rain outside grew heavier. Daniel finally began to speak. Not as a founder, not as a visionary, but as a son who had failed. The first investor pulled out in March. Then our CTO quit. We burned through cash faster than we projected. I kept telling myself it would turn around. That the next pitch would save us. His hands shook. I couldn't sleep. I stopped answering calls. I didn't want you to see me like that. Like what? Like I wasn't special. Maria felt something shift inside her chest. For the first time since the freezer, she saw him not as the thief, but as the little boy terrified of disappointing her. Daniel, she said softly, I never needed you to be special. He looked up. I needed you to be honest. His throat tightened. All those years, she continued, I saved that money because I was afraid. Afraid of getting old with nothing. Afraid of being a burden. Afraid that if something happened to me, you would struggle. She paused. And then you took it. Tears welled in his eyes. I thought if I succeeded, I'd give you more than you ever saved. And if you fail? He had no answer. Maria reached for the envelope. She picked it up, weighed it in her hands. It was thinner than it should have been. She could send him away. She could demand legal repayment. Shut him out. Teach him a lesson that would scar him. Or she could teach him something harder. Responsibility. I am not taking this, she said suddenly. His head snapped up. What? You will keep it. Mom, you will open a bank account. In your name and mine. Every dollar you earn, you will deposit there until it reaches $48,300. He stared at her. And you will come here every Sunday, she continued. You will sit at this table. And you will show me the balance. His breathing grew uneven. And if I don't, she looked at him steadily. Then you are not my son. The words were calm. Firm. Final. Daniel broke. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But completely. He slid off the couch onto his knees in front of her. I'm sorry, he sobbed. I was so sure I could win. I didn't think about losing. I didn't think about hurting you. Maria let him cry. Let him empty himself of ego and illusion. After a long time, she placed her hand on his head, the way she used to when he had nightmares. You are allowed to fail, she said quietly. But you are not allowed to betray. The rebuilding was not fast. Daniel worked 3 jobs. Delivery driving at night. Coding freelance projects. Tutoring underclassmen. Every Sunday he came home. They sat at the kitchen table. They checked the account balance together. $2,400. $7,850. $12,300. Some Sundays they spoke easily. Some Sundays silence hung thick. Trust does not return in one apology. It returns in consistency. Months passed. Then a year. On a warm June afternoon, Daniel placed a printed bank statement in front of her. Balance. $48,300. Exact. To the dollar. He looked at her, not proud. Not triumphant. Just steady. I kept my word. Maria felt tears rise. But this time they were different. She stood slowly, walked to the freezer, opened it, reached behind the frozen peas, and placed a new envelope inside. Daniel watched, confused. What are you doing? She closed the freezer. This one, she said softly, is for your next idea. His eyes widened. No, I can't. You will not touch it, she interrupted, unless you ask me first. He nodded quickly, tears forming again. And if I say no? Then I find another way. Maria smiled faintly. That is how men build something real. Years later, Daniel would become successful. But not because of that first reckless startup. He became successful because he learned. Capital is replaceable. Trust is not. And the most dangerous debt in the world is the one you owe to someone who loved you without conditions. That night, Maria lay in bed and realized something profound. She had not raised a perfect son. She had raised a flawed one. And then she had raised him again. And sometimes, that is the greater miracle. Success did not return loudly. It arrived quietly, like morning light slipping through blinds. 3 years after the freezer, Daniel stood in a downtown Houston co-working space, pitching again. But this time he was different. No fast talk. No inflated projections. No promises of disruption. Just numbers. Proof. And humility. He no longer chased applause. He chased stability. And Maria noticed. Her name was Ava Reynolds. She was sharp. MBA from Rice. Investor relations for a mid-sized logistics firm. She met Daniel at a networking event in Midtown. She liked that he listened more than he spoke. She liked that he admitted failure without flinching. But one night, over dinner, she asked a question that tightened something inside him. So, what was your biggest mistake in your first startup? Daniel stared at his plate. He had rehearsed this answer before: cash burn, scaling too fast, inexperienced hiring. But those weren't the truth. The truth was an envelope in a freezer. I cut corners, he said carefully. In what way? He looked up at her. I betrayed someone who trusted me. Ava didn't laugh. Didn't brush it off. She studied him. And what did you learn? That trust compounds slower than money, but it's worth more. She smiled. Good answer. He shook his head. It's not a good answer. It cost me something real. For the first time, Daniel realized that shame doesn't disappear. It integrates. It becomes part of your foundation. Growth was steady. His second venture, a smaller, practical logistics software firm, gained traction. No flashy headlines. Just steady clients. Then one night, at 2:17 a.m., his phone rang. Hospital. Houston Methodist. His mother had collapsed at work. Hospitals have a particular kind of brightness, sterile, unforgiving. Daniel arrived breathless, heart pounding like it had the day she discovered the missing envelope. Maria looked small in the bed. Too small. A nurse explained. Stress. Exhaustion. Untreated high blood pressure. She works 2 jobs? The doctor asked. Daniel felt something twist violently inside his chest. Yes. Why? Because she never trusted security. Because I once took it from her. When Maria woke, Daniel was sitting beside her. He hadn't left. Her voice was thin. You look tired. He laughed shakily. You scared me. I fainted. I didn't die. You could have. She studied him. There was something new in his eyes. Fear, not of failure. Of loss. I'm going to sell the house, he said suddenly. Her eyes widened. No. I can buy you something better. Closer to my place. You won't work again. Daniel. I'm serious. She reached for his hand. You think this is about money? He paused. It wasn't. It was about control. About undoing the helplessness he once caused. Sit, she whispered. He did. You paid back the envelope, she continued softly. Yes. But you are still trying to pay something else. His throat tightened. I owe you. No, she said gently. You don't. He shook his head. I stole from you. You learned. I hurt you. You grew. I could have destroyed everything you built. She smiled faintly. But you didn't. He stared at her, tears rising. You think success fixes guilt, she said. It doesn't. Only forgiveness does. His voice broke. Have you forgiven me? She squeezed his hand. I forgave you the day you showed up every Sunday. Weeks later, Daniel received an offer. A national expansion deal. But the contract required aggressive scaling. Risk. Heavy reinvestment. And a clause that would require him to leverage personal assets. Including his joint account with Maria. He stared at the document for hours. 3 years ago, he would have signed without hesitation. This time, he drove to her house. The same house. The same freezer. The same kitchen table. He placed the contract in front of her. I want to expand, he said calmly. But it involves risk. And your name is attached to this account. She looked at him carefully. And I won't do anything without your consent. Silence filled the kitchen. Not tense. Not fragile. Just steady. What do you think? She asked. I think it's viable, he said. But if it fails, we lose a lot. And if it succeeds, it changes everything. She leaned back in her chair. You asked. Yes. You're prepared to hear no? Yes. She held his gaze for a long moment. Then smiled. Then I trust you. The expansion succeeded. Not explosively. Not overnight. But steadily. Daniel didn't become a billionaire. He became something better. Stable. Respected. Grounded. Ava eventually learned the full story of the envelope. She didn't see a thief. She saw a man who had been rebuilt. Years later, when Daniel stood in a hospital room again, this time holding his newborn daughter, he understood something in a way he never had before. Maria stood beside him. He looked at his child's tiny hands and felt the terrifying weight of unconditional love. He imagined her at 23. Imagined her stealing. Imagined her lying. The thought alone crushed him. Maria watched his face soften. Now you understand, she said quietly. He nodded. Yes. Months later, Maria no longer worked. She moved into a smaller home near Daniel's family. One Sunday afternoon, she opened her freezer. Behind the frozen vegetables sat an envelope. Old habit. Daniel walked in. He laughed softly. You still don't trust banks? She smiled. I trust people. He stepped closer. And she handed him the envelope. For her, she said, nodding toward his daughter sleeping in the next room. He opened it. Savings. Carefully folded. Years of small bills again. Mom, I am not investing in a business this time, she said gently. I am investing in forgiveness. Daniel hugged her. Not as a boy desperate to prove himself. Not as a man chasing success. But as a son who finally understood. The greatest return on investment is not profit. It is trust restored. 15 years passed. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But the way time always does, stealing softness, adding lines, reshaping what matters. Daniel's company had grown into something solid. Not flashy. Not viral. But respected across Texas logistics networks. He was no longer introduced as a rising founder. He was introduced as dependable. And for him, that meant everything. Maria had silver hair now. She moved slower. But her eyes remained sharp, always watching, always measuring the emotional temperature of a room. And lately, she had noticed something. Her name was Elena Alvarez. 17. Brilliant. Restless. Fearless in the way youth confuses speed with destiny. She built apps for fun. Edited videos. Talked about artificial intelligence and blockchain at the dinner table. Daniel saw himself in her. And it terrified him. One evening, Elena burst into the kitchen breathless. "Dad, I got into the Youth Startup Accelerator in Austin." Maria froze slightly at the word. "Austin." Daniel smiled carefully. "That's great," he said. But his stomach tightened. 2 weeks later, Elena stood in his home office. "I need $25,000 for the prototype phase," she said, pacing. "It's a health tech integration platform. Wearable sync, predictive analytics. It's going to change remote diagnostics." Daniel blinked. 25,000? It's seed capital. I've already got 2 angel mentors interested. The words felt like déjà vu. Seed capital. Angel mentors. Change everything. He leaned back in his chair. "Where exactly do you expect that money to come from?" She hesitated. "Well, we have savings." The air shifted. Not aggressively, but noticeably. Maria, sitting quietly in the corner, knitting, listening, stopped her needles. Daniel stood slowly. "Elena," he said calmly, "money isn't just numbers. It represents time. Work. Sacrifice." "I know that," she replied quickly. "I'm not asking you to give it to me. It's an investment." The word landed sharply. Investment. Maria looked at Daniel. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The past was suddenly sitting at the table with them. "Did you already apply?" Daniel asked carefully. "Yes." "Did you promise funding?" Elena hesitated. "I said I was confident I could secure it." Maria's hands tightened slightly around the yarn. Daniel walked to the window. Rain tapped softly against the glass. History does not repeat loudly. It whispers. "Did you assume," he asked quietly, "that I would say yes?" She lifted her chin. "I assumed you'd understand." The words struck like lightning. Daniel turned slowly. "I do understand." "Then why are you hesitating?" "Because understanding isn't the same as agreeing." Maria stood. "Elena," she said gently, "come sit." Elena obeyed, though frustration flickered across her face. Maria looked at Daniel. He nodded. It was time. "There was once an envelope," Maria began softly. Elena frowned slightly. "What envelope?" Daniel swallowed. "One that I took without permission." Elena's eyes widened. "You stole from Grandma?" The word hit harder than any accusation. "Yes," he said quietly. Silence filled the room. "You?" Elena whispered. "Yes." "Why?" "Because I believed my ambition justified it." Maria's voice was calm. He thought success would erase betrayal. Elena looked between them, stunned. "And did it?" Daniel shook his head. "No. Only honesty did." Elena stood abruptly. "I'm not stealing anything," she protested. "I'm asking." Daniel nodded. "And that changes everything." Her breathing slowed slightly. "But you feel entitled," he continued gently. "You assumed access." Her eyes flashed. "I've worked hard for this." "And so did your grandmother," he replied. The words were not cruel. They were steady. And they landed. Daniel sat back down. "I will consider investing," he said. Elena's face lit up. Then he raised a hand. "But not like this." "What do you mean?" "You will prepare a full business plan. Risk analysis. Contingency strategy." "I already have." "You will also secure at least 40% of the funding elsewhere." Her face fell. "That's not fair." Maria smiled softly. "Fair is earning what you ask for." Elena's jaw tightened. "You don't believe in me." Daniel's voice softened. "I believe in you enough not to let you shortcut integrity." Later that evening, Elena found Maria alone in the kitchen. "Did he really steal from you?" she asked quietly. Maria nodded. "Were you angry?" "Yes." "Did you ever stop loving him?" Maria smiled faintly. "Love is not the question. Trust is." Elena stared at the floor. "I would never hurt you like that." Maria reached out, touching her granddaughter's chin. "I know." A pause. "But you must understand something very important." "What?" "Ambition can make good people blind." 3 months later, Elena returned with a binder. Detailed. Measured. Impressive. She had secured 45% of her funding independently. Grants. Pitch competitions. Small investors. Daniel read every page. Maria watched both of them carefully. Finally, Daniel closed the binder. "You did it the right way." Elena held her breath. "I'll invest." This time, when the word landed, it felt different. Not theft, not assumption, but agreement. The prototype launched. Slow growth, careful expansion, no wild scaling, no reckless burn. Elena visited Maria every Sunday, even when Daniel was traveling. They checked financial updates together. 3 generations at the same kitchen table. No envelopes hidden, no secrets buried, just transparency. Years later, when Maria passed peacefully in her sleep, the family gathered in the kitchen afterward. Daniel opened the freezer. Nothing hidden behind the vegetables. No foil. No envelope. He smiled through tears. Elena stepped beside him. "What are you looking for?" "Proof," he said softly. "Of what?" "That we learned." She slipped her hand into his. "We did." And for the first time in decades, the freezer was just a freezer. Not a vault. Not a test. Not a secret. Because the true inheritance Maria left behind was not money. It was a standard. And that was worth more than anything she ever folded into an envelope.